Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football Dill. Michigan, for lack of better terms, gets embarrassed at home by Texas Saturday afternoon. Now, as Michigan fans ourselves, we've watched this game a couple of different times since Saturday afternoon. Want to get into, kind of what went wrong for Michigan and more importantly, like what needs to get fixed and fixed fast if Michigan wants to be competitive in 2024. Now, I think the most important conversation here is the Michigan fans. Look, we're on Twitter and on the message boards. Would love to hear how you guys are feeling in the comment section. A lot of different ways you can be frustrated with this football game. Though we could probably go 90 minutes in terms of talking about our frustrations. We're going to try to keep it to 15. So would love to hear from you guys in the comment section. And Dill, without further ado, you got to start with the offense. And what I have in my notes after watching this game back a couple of different times, one, no identity. And more importantly, like what scares you about this Michigan offense? Like outside of Colston Loveland at tight end, there's not really a player or something that Michigan can go to manufacture explosive plays, or more importantly, make a defensive coordinator fear what you're doing on offense. That's the biggest problem. Like Michigan's got to find an identity, but more importantly, like they got to find some dudes and some concepts that are going to scare opposing defenses over the next couple of weeks.
And I think the crux of the problem is I don't think Michigan's quite as, or they're definitely not as good up front as they were last year.
No, not even close.
They're not as good at the running back spot. So they can't just kind of lean on teams the way they used to. And with that being said, you need your quarterback when you can't do what Michigan was doing last year. You need your quarterback to be more of a playmaker. And that's just the polar opposite of what we're getting. And the real frustrating part is I don't even think we're really getting steady quarterback play. Like that's a brutal game for Davis Warren. I mean, throwing interceptions, missing wide open guys like Tyler Morris. If he's not going to hit that pass, then they got to find something else because the Michigan's offense, I just don't think around him is good enough for him not to add something himself and be able to make something happen.
But I think the spot you get in with that conversation is I think it's pretty clear that Michigan doesn't trust Alex Orji to throw the football. And quite frankly, when Alex Orji was on the football field against Texas, now granted, you're kind of getting trotted in and out and you don't really have any rhythm. From what we saw with Alex Orji, like the Michigan offense didn't really have a spark with him either, although it be a small sample size. But I'm kind of with you, right? The run game's not going to be as good. The playmakers on the outside don't seem to be as good. So you need more from your quarterback. And Michigan doesn't have a guy that they can lean on to go elevate this offense. Now, I want to ask you a question because I think this is a very popular conversation. I had a few buddies text me this last night. Do you go to the true freshman, Jadyn Davis? And my initial reaction to that as well, I kind of saw you shake your head, was, is that right to put our true freshman, a guy that we think is going to be a future winner for Michigan at the quarterback spot, thrust him into an offense that, again, outside of Colston Loveland, doesn't really have any difference makers on the outside, can't really run the football that effectively, and struggles in pass protection? I don't think that's the right recipe to just throw a true freshman and Jadyn Davis out there with a Michigan offense that I think is in shambles right now.
Well, I'll be kind of frank. If it doesn't get better at the quarterback spot, I almost think, well, like they're not going to win at a particularly high level this year. I'm kind of comfortable possibly getting Jadyn Davis going because, frankly, there's not going to be that many games where he gets, like, quote, beat up on. I don't even think Oregon's going to beat up on Michigan on defense. Like, I think Oregon will be a problem for Michigan for sure, but I don't think they'll, like, just overwhelm Michigan in a sense. Ohio State, that's probably the one you're looking at. Ohio State's defense is really, really good, obviously. And if things don't change for Michigan's offense, that's the one game I kind of look at like, well, that could get like a little wild or in a sense on offense. So, again, to me, if things don't change, I think, like, again, you take this more of a rebuilding year and get Jadyn Davis ready to roll because they need to find some answer in the post JJ.
But my question is getting Jadyn Davis ready to roll is the best recipe to throw him out with an offense that just doesn't have an identity, can't really protect him all that well, and can't really run the football. Like, that's my problem, is like we see some of these coaches throw out these true freshmen that, although I
will say, I think we can run the ball better than you're kind of implying. Like, we ran the ball decent against Texas. We're just getting zero from the quarterback spot, like zero.
Yeah, and the field is so condensed. You think about that third down play where Davis Warren's trying to fit it into a tight window, gets tipped for a pick. Like, there's just teams that don't no, we can't attack vertically down the field. Like, you look at the two explosive plays Michigan was able to manufacture in the passing attack. One was a flea flicker. Two was a broken play where Davis Warren extends the play and finds Samaj Morgan. Like, there's no real concept of play that we can go to where we're injecting any sort of fear down the field. So it's so condensed.
But even when they're there, we're not making them. I mean, that's
Yeah.
the frustrating part. Like Tyler Morris was open on that play, and you miss him badly, and then you miss one to Samaj Morgan, you throw it low. It's like, again, I get that there's certainly an issue. Like they need more playmakers. We all kind of knew that coming in. But even when they're there, it's not getting hit. So I don't want to like absolve the quarterback position and say like things around him aren't as good.
Oh, yeah,
They're
100%.
not as good, but we're getting, again, pretty close to zero. So at this point, I would be comfortable. Jadyn Davis he is the heir apparent. I mean, he's a guy that I think will be leaned on very heavily to bring Michigan kind of back up to ultra competitive, like national championships competitive, because they really didn't recruit a guy in the JJ McCarthy era until Jadyn Davis. So at some point he's going to be the guy. And given what we've seen so far, he's certainly probably the most talented guy. I think, again, if he's showing anything, at least give this offense some sort of life, some sort of chance, because we don't have it with these two.
Yeah, no, and it's really hard to like pinpoint blame, so to speak. Like play calling, players, quarterback play, like it was all just bad. And so like the blame can go kind of to all sorts of parties. Again, we could probably go 90 minutes in terms of what Michigan needs to clean up. Dill, Evan Link, all this hype coming out of fall camp.
Struggled.
And again, those Texas edge rushers are very good. Some of, if not the best edge rushers outside of Ohio State we might see all year. That being said, Evan Link physically looked like he was a redshirt freshman that came in at 260. Like Texas, from a physical standpoint, was having their way. I want to talk about two bright spots. One bright spot, really. Benjamin Hall. Benjamin Hall runs the rock, man. And like we talked about this consistently, our frustration sometimes with Donovan Edwards just not attacking the line of scrimmage and keeping this team on schedule. Benjamin Hall does that. I wonder if Tony Alford said it in the press conference before this football game, like Benjamin Hall has earned some snaps. Wonder if we see a little bit more of Benjamin Hall again. We'll see. This offense has so many different things that it needs to figure out. Now, if I were to be a sunshine pumper, it would be, look, Michigan did have to replace 10 out of 11 starters, and it was kind of foolish for a lot of Michigan fans to just think we'd step on the football field and completely run it back. I mean, you lost guys that were 3-year starters on the offensive line. You lost a top 10 NFL draft pick at the quarterback position, one of the best running backs Michigan has seen in the history of their program. It was going to be hard to replace all that talent and play a Texas team week 2 that returns so much. And everyone says, yeah, they lost 10 NFL draft picks, but they also returned pretty much the whole offensive line. They returned the quarterback spot. They did a better job than us in the transfer portal, addressing some of their concerns at wide receiver. So, like, Texas was a more experienced, complete football team than Michigan, and it clearly showed. Now, I want to talk about the defense real quick, too, because, look, the defense we thought would be a top 5 team in the country. And if you were optimistic about Michigan winning this football game at home, and because the defense keeps us in the football game, brutal on third downs. And Wink Martindale got his tail whipped by Coach Sark in the play calling department. Like Michigan just shows all, and I feel like at times, and I'm not like a defensive coordinator genius, but I feel like at times it's just blindly aggressive from Wink Martindale. Coach Sark knew that was going to happen. So what does Coach Sark start dialing up? Some slip screens, some misdirections, get Michigan's eyes flowing in the wrong direction because we play so fast to the football. We're a step behind. Texas has a ton of team speed on offense. And Wink Martindale, I thought, got whipped from a play calling department.
And if you're not going to get the quarterback to the ground, that was the one issue with me is they were viewers extend plays too often, and he's not like a premier athlete at the quarterback spot. He's gotten a whole lot better.
Yeah, he does.
He has elevated Texas offense for getting there kind of athletically, but he's really not a guy who they should be allowing third down when they're going to try to dial something up. I mean, they have to get him to the ground. That was like the crux because I thought for the most part Michigan's defense was pretty good, but as you kind of said, Coach Sark certainly caught Wink kind of cheating a couple times, got their running backs into space with a lot of room, got Quinn Ewers extended.
The linebackers weren't nearly good. Like Jay Sean Barham and Ernst. Jimmy Rolder, I thought, played actually all right. So that's another bright spot. And again, like I think Jay Sean Barham's a great football player, but you could tell he was kind of in shambles in terms of Coach Sark and all the misdirection. Like he was really struggling in terms of identifying where the play is going, how to find the football. Ernest Hausman was missing tackles out his butt pretty much all Saturday. Yeah, and I think
Well,
one of the other
I don't want to jump on the defense too much because honestly, I thought for the most, but they were playing pretty well. Again,
yeah,
a couple of third downs that they blew
you
it.
got to get off the field. Yeah,
But they were also on the field the whole game because
agree.
I mean, at the end of the day, if they don't fix this offense, I don't think they're putting their defense in a good spot. I think again with some of the depth issues up front, not that I think those are bad, but like I mean, Mason Graham, Kenny Grant, you were telling me like watching that game, they're playing all game. They're playing so many snaps. And I think again, we can't possess the football. We're not running the ball like we did last year, and we're getting again the quarterback just isn't making plays. No matter who it is, we're not making plays from that position. And if you aren't really damn near perfect everywhere else, and your quarterback plays that way,
Yeah.
you don't sustain drives. Michigan's not sustaining drives, and it's putting their defense in a really, really
Yeah, one of you mentioned the depth on the defensive line. Mason Graham played 58 snaps. Kenny Graham played 60. And the most snaps they played all year last year was 48 for Mason Graham and 37 for Kenny Graham. Kenny Graham almost played double the amount of snaps, the most snaps he played last year. And I think those depth concerns on the interior of the defensive line, though, I didn't think they looked horrible on the inside of the defensive line in terms of the
well,
two
but
deep
it's the issue is you're not getting your dominant guys playing dominant because they're
because
just
they're
feel
gassed.
too much. And that's a combination of depth. But like again, I thought like Ike Uina came in, played pretty good football. So Trey Pierce, I thought was playing good. So I don't think it's a depth issue if the offense can pick it up. I mean,
Yeah.
again, I just think like they were on the field all game pretty much
Yeah.
nonstop because
Like what made Michigan's defense so good from not only like their personnel was elite, we all know that, but why were they number one in the country in terms of points per game allowed, yards per game allowed?
had
Because they weren't playing that much football. You know what I mean? Like the recipe for Michigan last year was we are going to run the football, control the time possession. Our defense is going to be fresh throughout 4 quarters, not only because we're deep, but more importantly, because they ain't playing that much because our offense is on the football field the whole game. It's kind of reverse. And I said this in the instant reaction yesterday. Like Texas did to us what we did to every team last year in 2023. Like just grinded us down. And
then when Quinn Ewers had to make big plays, he made big plays.
yeah, Quinn was great. I think you got to like you also have to give like we're getting on and kind of I guess airing out our frustration in terms of our this Michigan team. You know, we obviously care about this team.
It was good.
Quinn was freaking awesome. Like Quinn was a top 10 NFL draft pick today. And when you're playing a top 10 NFL draft pick and you have a guy that respectfully is probably not going to the NFL, like it shows. You have to be a lead around the quarterback. And right now we're just not. Got some time to figure some things out. Again, 12-team playoff, like you have your season in front of you, but
it's not really in front of them
if they don't. Yeah, exactly. It's got to change, and we'll probably get into some of the stuff that we saw later in the week. But wanted to hop on, talk about what we saw, and give
one last thing because I've been hearing the rumbles too. Is Tuttle? I mean, is it going to be the Tuttle show when he gets back?
No.
Yeah, I know he was hurt, but you don't think there's any chance?
Maybe we'll see. I mean, to be honest, like I'm okay
feel like
with.
He'll do kind of similar things, frankly.
Yeah, like I don't know what Tuttle brings that Davis Warren doesn't. And at the end of the day, it's like I'm okay with Kirk and Sherrone trying to find answers. Like just like try to find answers. I think you still have a really good defense. I think you'll be able to run the football as the offensive line ideally gets a little bit more gelled, but we got to figure some things out and figure some things out quickly. We'll see. I'm going to be listening to a lot of the press conferences over the next couple of days in terms of what Sherrone Moore, because he kept saying, hey, we got to look at the film. I was like, all right, get back to us on Tuesday when you get into the film. Tell us what's going on, because I think a lot of Michigan fans would like to hear your input. We'll close it there. Obviously, the boys are frustrated. Michigan fans, let it fly in the comment section. Y'all have shown a ton of love and support to the boys. We appreciate y'all, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.